unless you're having a wedding or something. That was one time. Oh, I'll tell you later. Okay, we are at uh, Gimel Chet. For every calamity that may befall the community, we found a shofar concerning them, except for the excessive rain. It once happened that the people said to Kohen Hamago, the rain, pray for that rain should fall. He said to them, go and bring in the ovens used for roasting the Pesach sacrifices, lest they dissolve because of the rain. He prayed, but no rain fell. What did he do? He drew a circle and stood within it and said before him, Master of the universe, your children have turned to me because I am like a member of your household. I swear by your great name that I shall not move from here until you have mercy on your children. Rain began to trickle. He said, not for such rain have I prayed, but for rain that will fill the water holes, ditches, and caves. Rain began to fall with a vengeance. He said, not for this have I prayed, but for the rain of a goodwill, blessing, and grace. The rain fell normally until the Jews excuse me, so the Jews left Jerusalem for the Temple Mount in the face of the rain. They came and said to him, just as you pray for them to fall, pray that they cease. He said to them, go out and see whether the stone of the strayers has been washed away. Shimon ben Shetach sent him a message saying, were you not Coney, I would pronounce a ban upon you, but what can I do to you since you are like a favorite child before the omnipresent? And he fulfills your wishes like a son who makes himself like a young child before his father, and he fulfills his wishes. Concerning people like you, Scripture says, "May your father and mother be glad, and she bore you in rejoice. You bore you rejoice." If they had been fasting and rain began to fall before sunrise, they need not complete the fast. If the rain began to fall after sunrise, they must complete the fast. If Eliezer says if it began to rain before midday, they need not to complete the fast, but if the rain began after midday, they must complete the fast. It once happened that a fast is decreed in Lord, and rain fell before midday. Reb Tarfon said to them, go out, eat, and drink. It became a holiday. Then they went out, ate, drank, and became the holiday. In the afternoon, they returned to the synagogue and recited the great Hallel. Mhm. On the three junctures of the year, the Kohanim raised their hands to bless the people four times during the day at Chakras, Musaf, Mincha, and Nila, on fast days, on Hamados, and on Yom Kippur. Okay.
Okay. Elohim Mamados. Okay, so now the Mishnah is going to tell us what is a mamad. The Fisha Neymar, Tzavis B'nai Yisrael v'Yamata Lehem es Kobani Lachmi. So that's what we read every Rosh Chodesh. It's the beginning of the Rosh Chodesh reading. Um, but it's starting to talk about the Korban Tamid. It's not just about Rosh Chodesh. So it's just an opportunity to add in the Korban Tamid into the laning. So every day the Korban Tamid is being brought on behalf of all of Israel. How can a person have his sacrifice being brought if he is not standing on top of it, or at least his shaliach? His kinu neviim harishonim esim va'arba mishmaros. So the original the early neviim established the practice of having 24 watches of Kohanim. Al kol mishmar mishmar haya mamad b'Yerushalayim shel Kohanim, and for every mishmar, for every watch, there would be a group of Kohanim who are on duty for that week. Shel Leviim, Shel Yisraelim, and not only them, but also Leviim and Yisraelim would have their turn in the temple. So they would, Leviim coming to do their singing and whatever other auxiliary work they did, and the Yisraelim had to come and be present for the korban. Now again, higia zman hamishmar la'alos. So comes the time for the mishmar to take over. I think, as I recall, um, they change over on Sunday. Because I remember that's when they distribute the lechem apanim that had been sitting there the previous week. They take Motzei Shabbos, they take off the lechem apanim and give it around. If I may be wrong, but that's what I recall. Anyway, Higiaz man hamishmar la'alos. So it's time for the mishmar to come. Kohanim Levim olim liYerushalayim. So the land is divided up. It's divided up geographically, as far as I understand. And the Kohanim and the Levium from that area, they literally all go to Yerushalayim because their work is in the temple. Okay. The Israel Shiba also Mishmar, and what do you do with all the Israelim? You're not going to send 1/24th of the entire country up to Yerushalayim. Miskansin la'arehim. So they would gather together, and they would perform. They would do, certain things inside their hometowns, to show that they were part of it, and they would send some delegation, a small delegation of Israelim to go and actually be present, because you don't need a lot of people to be there. You just need a shaliach. Okay, but the rest of the people who were who were in the Mamad, all those areas would have a procedure that they would do for davening back in their home cities. The Kohen b'Maaseh Bereshis, and they would learn from the Torah in Maaseh Bereshis. Interesting. I'm not sure. I didn't see any explanation why they chose to do Maaseh Bereshis, but that's what we learn over here. Mishnah Gimel, Anshe Mamad Hayu Misanin Arba'a Yamim Bashavua. So they would actually fast 4 of the days of that week.
Yeah.
Meyom Sheni v'ad Yom Chamishi. So Monday through Thursday, every day they would fast. Lo hayu misanin Erev Shabbos, but they wouldn't fast on Erev Shabbos mipnei kvod Shabbos, so they were not going to go into Shabbos all fasting. V'lo be'echad b'Shabbos, and also not on Sunday. Kedei shelo yetzu mimenucha v'oneg liyagia v'sanes v'yamusu. So they shouldn't leave Shabbos and go from the happiness and whatever of Shabbos, and then suddenly drop into a Sunday. And
But
it says Vayamusu, which is very strong language, but it really means weaken themselves.
were
Um,
these full day fasts? Were
hmm?
these full day fasts? Were these full day fasts?
But that's not possible because they're full consecutive. So it must have been a sunrise to sunset fast. Be- Right, because it's just not possible. They would have had to fast for 4 days consecutively.
Right, that's
That's
true.
not, yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, so where were we? Okay. The Yom Rishon, so what do they learn from the Torah? On Sunday, they learn from straight from Bereshis, uh, and the Yehirakia, and the creation of heavens and earth. Bashani, they on Monday they would learn from Yehirakia via Kavu Hamayim. So let the heavens be formed, and the water be gathered together. B'shlishi Yekavu Hamayim v'hi Ma'oros. So they'd carry through all the way until the fourth day of creating all of the planets. Okay. Baravi'i, this is now Wednesday, Yahi Ma'oros, they would reread that portion, the Yishratzu Hamayim, and the creation of the fish and the birds. B'chamishi, Yishratzu Hamayim, v'totzei ha'aretz. And then they would, so on Thursday, they were reading about the fish and creation of the plants on earth. Bashishi, totzei ha'aretz, and vayachulu hashemayim. So on Friday they would read the whole thing of let the earth bring forth plants, and also Vayechul Hashemayim, and the until the creation until Shabbos basically. So
On, Yom Revi'i, there's a whole interesting comment about on Wednesday the luminaries and the Lord has swarmed the portions of the fourth and fifth days. Luminaries as I can't read what it said. Madats, Madat. Is that what it is? I can't read the letters here.
sorry,
Um,
in what is
uh, Mem Aleph. It looks like a resh, or maybe it's a resh tet. Luminaries is spelled effectively according to Mo'adad, which is a curse, a plague. You see that you have in the commentary? You don't
I haven't seen that, no.
have.
And that's
There's
in
a
the
Wednesday.
article. That's interesting because because I've actually been preparing. I got the article digital library, so I've been using that to prepare lately.
It says it was alluding to a plague, a curse, which is what? Mo'arad, is that it?
Hmm.
A curse?
Didn't I?
So it says the sages teach that this plague, namely croup, can be attributed to the luminaries. Therefore, they pray that children should be saved from the croup.
Huh.
So,
Well,
by the way,
okay.
before we go on, that library that you got, can you still order that? Are you able to do that, or did
Well,
it stop?
there was a special, like a 1 or 2 day Cyber Monday special, where they
Uh,
were selling it for $300 instead of 1,000.
I have to find out if I can do anything about it. So check it out. Okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted. All right,
Yeah,
so
anyway, Parsha Gedola Korin or Sabishnaim. So if it was a portion, then they would split it between two people. Hakatana biyachid. Remember, in those days, also people knew how to lane better, and they would rely and they would call up everyone. When you called for an aliyah, you would lane your own the portion that you've
all
given.
right.
Okay. Um,
I'm
for-
glad they
okay,
stopped.
Katana biyachid, a small portion is only read by one person. What they don't mention over here is that you have rules of reading. One is that when you call for an aliyah, it can never be less than three psukim,
Right,
and two is that you cannot end within two more than sorry you cannot start or end less than two psukim from a break, less than three psukim from a break. So either you restart on the break, or you got to be in the middle of the paragraph at least three psukim away from a break in either direction.
I'm glad they canceled that thing about the long portion be read by one of the people going up things. I'm glad they canceled that out.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So this they did this laning both at Shachris and at Musaf. It's interesting. So what is this Musaf? Um, so Bishach is a Musaf. If this is only if there is a Musaf, right? So
Okay.
so if it's a Rosh Chodesh or something, uh, which is I guess your typical use case. But I suppose it could also be on a Yom Tov if the Mamad passes over a Yom Tov, so then you'd have a Musaf as well. Um, okay, but then of course you're not fasting. Anyway, ובמנחה נכנסין וקוראים על פיהן כקוראים Shema. And at Mincha time, they didn't actually bring a Sefer Torah out because the people have been fasting all day, so they decided that they would. And I don't know why they don't say that about us now when we lane at Mincha, but nonetheless they didn't do that. אלא נכנסין לבית הכנסת. They would go into the shul b'korin al pihen, and they would just read the Kriyas Hayom Baal Peh, which is okay. I guess if you're doing that all the time, then you get to remember the parshas of Bereshis a little better. K'korin Shema, just like we all know Kriyas Shema by heart.
You're
Anyway,
not supposed to you're not supposed to name by heart.
yeah, I know. It's interesting. Erev Shabbos b'mincha lo hayu nichnasin mipnei kvod Shabbos. But and on Friday afternoon there was no such thing because everyone's busy preparing for Shabbos. They're not going to haul them back into shul for a whole special thing.
Right.
Okay, Dalit, call Yom sheyesh bo Hallel. So any day on which there is a Hallel. Um, so for example, Purim, not Purim, Hanukkah, and of course all the Yom Tovs. Ein bo mamad b'shachris. So there's no mamad in the morning. Korban Musaf. If there is a Korban Musaf, Ein bo Banila, then there's nothing at the Ne'ilah. Remember, now that what we just dropped in kind of casually over here is that at the Mama they even had a Tefillas Ne'ilah, which is why we came back to this, because if you remember in Mishnah Aleph, we said that there are three times that we have a Ne'ilah. Uh, um, that when the Kohanim duchen, right, when there's a late prayer that comes after Mincha. So we said on Yom Kippur and on fast days, the seven fast days that we described in the earlier prakim, and Mamad, and so Mamad also has a Ne'ilah. Okay. Um, but if there is a Korban Musaf, we're saying, then there's no Ne'ilah. So this is actually kind of a strange thing, because we just said that they have five when you have the Kohanim duchening 5 times a day. So how do you not have if they're saying that when there's a Korban Musaf, then there's no Ne'ilah? Um, that's a strange thing. יש בו כל נוסף כגון ראש חודש, וכל שכן אין בו מעמד במוסף עצמו. And of course, there's no Ma'amad at Musaf itself, because the Korban Musaf pushes away the Ma'amad of the tefillah. Um, Mamad should be Yerushalayim. So most of the Mefarshim, I'm looking at Kahati for the first time actually because I was looking at the article yesterday and it didn't say this, but most of the Mefarshim say that this is dealing with the people of the Mamad who were in Yerushalayim, who didn't have the opportunity to do their Mamad, um, because of the Hallel and because of the Korban Musaf, because they're all in the temple. Aval. But Mishnah Kodemes, in the previous Mishnah, we're talking about the rest of the people of the Mamad in the rest of the country, um, outside of Yerushalayim. Therefore, um, shehem shayu korim b'maseh bereishis afilu b'tfilas musaf. So you're right. So they would read all of these things at Musaf. Okay, so that's the difference. Is that this Mishnah? So why is it, so that resolves the difficulty, because the people this Mishnah here is only talking about the people who in Yerushalayim and dealing with the stuff that in the temple, even the Israelim who have to be over there and standing over the Korban. So they
Right.
didn't do so when they had a Musaf. So now let's just reread this Mishnah with that understanding. So when you have a Hallel, there's no Mama de Shachris because they're they're in the temple and listening to the Hallel. When there's a Korban Musaf, then we don't have then they don't come back for Ne'ilah, which is interesting. I'm not sure what the connection is now, but certainly not in the Korban Musaf. So these are the people who are in Yerushalayim, and therefore
Um,
they don't have the Mamad then. Okay, but Korban Eitzim, we're going to learn later what's in tomorrow's Mishnayos, what's the Korban Eitzim when they bring wood. If there's a day of Korban Eitzim, then they don't have a Mamad at Mincha time because again they're on duty in the temple. Thus says Rabbi Akiva. Amar lo ben Azai. Then as I said, you've got your Masorah wrong. Kachaya Rabbi Yeshua Shoneh. This is what Rabbi Yeshua said. Korban Musaf ein bo mincha. If there's a Korban Musaf, then we don't have Mamad by Mincha. Korban Eitzim ein bo Ne'ilah. Then we omit the Ne'ilah, says, and this is my Masorah from Rabbi Yeshua. And Rabbi Akiva said, okay, you're saying this in the name of Rabbi Yeshua. Chazar Rabbi Akiva lios shonekig ben Azai. He said, okay, I'm changing what I said. I'm going along with what you're saying. That is an interesting. That's just a very interesting thing to read in its own right. That Rabbi Akiva had an opinion, and then he heard somebody else coming bringing in a Masorah and said, "Oh, okay, I'm changing."
you're right.
Nice and flexible. Okay, let's go back
Oh,
to Aleph Daled.
okay. Really, right. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh. In the 70th day of Mar Cheshvan arrived, but rain did not fall, the distinguished individual will start fasting a series of 3 fasts. Then they eat and drink after dark, and they're permitted to work, bathe, oil themselves with oil, wear shoes, and have marital relations. If rose colored Kislev arrived, but rain did not fall, the Beis Din decrees a series of 3 fasts upon the entire community. They may eat and drink after dark, and they're permitted to work, bathe, anoint themselves with oil, wear shoes, and have marital relations. If these fast passes then were not answered with rain, Beis Din decrees a series of 3 more fasts upon the entire community. They may eat and drink only while it is still daytime, and they are forbidden to work, bathe, anoint themselves with oil, wear shoes, and have marital relations. Also, they must lock public bathhouses. If these fast passes they were not answered with rain, Beis Din decrees a series of 7 more fasts upon them, totaling 13 fasts upon the entire community. These latter 7 were more stringent than the earlier ones, for on these they sound the shofar, lock the stores, and on Monday they may open the store doors partially toward evening, but on Thursday they were permitted to keep the doors open in honor of the Sabbath.
Okay.
Okay. And so
Daled tests.
and the dollar test. How is the water libation done? He filled the golden flag on holding 3 lugim from the Shloak. When they reached the water gate, they sounded tekiah, teruah, and tekiah. They went up the ramp and turned to his left. There were 2 silver bowls there. Rabbi Yehuda said they were of plaster, but the surfaces were darkened from wine. Each had a hole with a thin nostril, one wider than the other, narrower, so that both would drain out at the same time. The western one was for water, the eastern was for wine. If he poured the flagon of water into the bowl for wine, or the flagon of wine into the bowl for water, he fulfilled his obligation. If Yehuda said he would pour with one log all day, all 8 days, the pourer would say, "Raise your hand," but the one someone poured over his feet, and all the people pelted him with the ashogam. Just as it performed on a weekday, so it performed on Shabbos, except that he would fill an unconsecrated gold barrel on the eve of the Shabbos from the shilach and place it in the chamber. If they were spilled or uncovered, he would refill it from the laver for uncovered wine and water unfit for the altar. And the food is played 5 or 6 days in this. This is the food of the Beis HaShoeva, which overrides neither Shabbos nor festival. They said, whoever did not see the rejoicing in the Beis HaShoeva never saw rejoicing in his lifetime. Okay.
Okay. Ervin.
Okay. Love. The cistern between two courtyards we may not draw water from it on Shabbos, unless they make a petition for all 10 fists high, whether above or below or within the walls. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says space, Shammai says below, Risila says above. Rabbi Yehuda says the partition should not be more effective than the wall that is between them. If a canal passes through a courtyard, we may not draw water from it on Shabbos, unless they made a partition 10 fists high at the inlet and the outlet. Rabbi Yehuda says a wall over it is considered a partition. Says Rabbi Yehuda, it happened there was a canal in Havel, and from which they drew water at Shabbos upon the ruling of the sages. They answered him because it did not have the minimum dimensions. Excuse me. If the balcony above the water is above the water, we may not draw water from it on Shabbos unless they made a partition 10 feet high for it, and either from above or below. Similarly, two balconies, one above the other, and they made a partition for the upper one, but did not make one for the lower one. Both are prohibited unless they make an error.
Demai.
We have hey Zion.
Yeah.
Hey, if one buys from a field owner and brought from it, and again he draws may ties from one for the other, even if it's from two baskets, even if from the two towns. If a field owner was willing selling vegetables in the market, they could bring him from his gardens. He may tie from each one for all, and from other gardens he must tie from each one. If one buys from a wholesaler, I'm sorry, wrong way. If one buys tevel from two places, they may ties from one for the other, and although they said one may not sell tevel unless in the case of a necessity. If one may give a tithe from a Jews for that of a non-Jews, from a non-Jews for that of a Jew, from a Jews for that of a Kuthian, from a Kuthians for that of Kuthians, from Elias for visit, from a Kuthians for that of the Kuthians. Okay.
Okay.
This, sorry, I'm just the bookmark. Okay. And we have Caleb. Okay, we have test for base. Regarding a barrel that's full of tahor beverages and a siphon is in it, which is surrounded by a sealed cover and placed on the same roof as a corpse. Beis Shammai says the barrel and the beverages are tahor, but the siphon is tameh. And the Beis Hillel says even the siphon is tahor. Subsequently, Beis Hillel reversed themselves to rule in accordance with the view of Beis Shammai. Regarding a sheretz that was found beneath the floor of an oven, the oven is tahor, for I say it fell in while alive, and only now did it die. Regarding a needle or a ring that was found beneath the floor of an oven, the oven is tahor, for I say they were there before the oven arrived. If they were found in the ashes, the oven is tameh, for there's nothing to which it can be attributed. Regarding a sponge that absorbs tameh beverages and was dry on the outside and fell into the aspect of an oven, the oven is tameh because the beverage will eventually emerge. And similarly, a piece of turnip or reed grass for was tahor in these two cases. Okay.
All right.
And last. Okay. Chet Gimel. The daughters of Zelophehad took 3 fields of the inheritance, the share of the father who was among those who left Egypt, and their share among his brothers in the state of Hefer, and that which belonged, being a firstborn, he takes 2 portions. Both the son and the daughter have the same laws concerning inheritance, except that the son takes a double share of the father's estate, but does not take a double share of the mother's estate, and the daughters are supported from the father's estate, but are not supported from the mother's estate. One who says, that man, both my firstborn son, does not take a double share, or that man, my son, shall not inherit with his brothers, has not said anything because he has stipulated contrary to what is written in the Torah. One who apportions his estate to his sons orally, increasing the share of one, and increasing the share of one, making the firstborn equal to them, his words are upheld, but if he said that it was to be by inheritance, he did not say anything. If he wrote whether the beginning, the middle, the end, that was to be a gift, or his words are upheld. One who says that man shall inherit me in the case which there is a daughter, or my daughter shall inherit me in the case where there is a son, he had not said anything because he has stipulated contrary to what is written in the Torah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says, if he said this about one who's eligible for the inheritance, his words are upheld, and if about one who is not eligible for inheritance, his words are not upheld. One who signs over his property to another, and sets aside his sons. What he did is done, and the sages are now pleased with him. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, if his sons do not conduct themselves properly, he is remembered for good. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
that's it.
Okay,
I'm gonna run.
that